I've known Marlon for a long time, and he may use younger. And he doesn't really, I just. Yes. We don't need it anymore. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Village of Ruidoso workshop. It is May the 3rd. It is 8 o'clock. And if you would join me in standing for a moment of silence, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
All right, thank you, everybody. We probably do need to set that to music. It probably would help it out. It sounds a little mundane when we do it. Roll call, please, Ron.
Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Lutterman.
Here.
Councilor Eby. Councilor Hooker.
Here.
Councilor Coughlin.
Here.
Councilor Jackson.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And before I ask for a motion for today's agenda, if they get the manager, just tell him we got a couple of trucks and trailers taking some supplies.
Yes, Mayor, the Council of the Governor's Office reached out to us yesterday and asked if we had any supplies left over to help equip the shelter up in Glorieta. They've moved 200 of the United World College students there and are taking in other people that are evacuated in that area. So we contacted River Crossing Church, Lance Rowe, and Lance had taken into his business a lot of toiletry type of item, paper goods, clothing, things of that nature. So we got two trucks and two trailers that are headed that way. Adam and Marty are going to be running up there and taking those supplies that we have in excess from here in the community up to Glorieta.
And thank you very much.
And Mayor, we did receive a notice that the Governor's Cabinet is going to be here on Thursday. That meeting is going to be start at 12:30. We're elected officials. There's the Governor's office now calling. But I'll brief you more. Can I take this, Mayor?
All right, so we'll get the scheduling and everything for the cabinets when they come in, cabinet secretaries. All right, if I could get a motion for today's agenda, giving the chair the ability to move the agenda around, items around.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented and allow the chair to move items for discussion as needs must.
Second.
Discussion?
We have to do that because we don't make any.
Well, we're going through the agenda, yes.
Okay.
Okay, no discussion? Roll call, Ron?
Councilor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilor Hooker.
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Lutterman.
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Okay, yeah, because we're not voting on anything else except for the, I want to talk about item number 15 first with Herman and Karen. This is going to be, and we'll of course have this item on discussion since it's a regular item, since it's such a big deal, but we want to get Herman. And so if there's any additional information, now's the time you can ask him. And but it's discussion on the word of RFP for number 2022-008P to Valor Communications of Texas, LLC, DBA Windstream Communications for broadband expansion. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good morning, Mayor and Councilor. Councilors, Andrea's off today, so she'll be presenting at the council meeting, but filling in for her today. And we have Herman here to kind of go over if you all have any questions in reference to the technical side of things. So this RFP, we actually had quite a few companies show interest. We had 9 firms that actually drew down the RFP. We had a non-mandatory pre-proposal meeting, which four entities attended. And then from that, we had 3 entities that actually submitted a transmittal saying that they were going to propose. The village ended up receiving 2 proposals. One was with Windstream, and then the other was with Tularosa Basin, TBTC, Tularosa Basin Telephone Company. The evaluation committee met with the help of Herman, went through all of the RFP requirements, did a lot of talking and a lot of looking into all the requirements in the ARPA and all the stuff that's involved with this RFP. With that, they have selected Windstream as the most, most responsive RFP, and that's who they're recommending for us to.
Well, and Herman was brought in because we've gone through this thing several times, and then we don't even know what we're supposed to know.
Right.
What we're asking for, the different language between TDS, Tularosa Basin, Windstream. You know, we're guaranteed this, guaranteed that. Can you tell us about the survey? Herman, you want to tell us about that, where we sent out the email so people could test and the criteria that we're looking for?
Yes, the survey went out and 350 to 400 people actually filled it out. Very good response. And it showed exactly what we see out there is there's quite deficit areas, and to really get to the level that ARPA is looking for to fund, we have a very small area of fiber optic cable currently available in the village. So with this award, we can get fiber optic cable to everybody in the village. And the deal is we'll have gigabit, but the big deal is symmetric. Symmetric meaning upload and download. So you're gonna have two-way gigabit, you know, that's the same as 1,000 megabits per second. And today, people are in the survey, we're saying they had maybe 10 megabits per second download, and you know, maybe 1 or even less.
Going down,
Yeah, of upload. So, and then the sales pitches come in and say, hey, we give you gigabit, but it's not symmetric. No, so the company may offer gigabit on the download, and it still never reaches that, but very small amount on the upload, meaning you're still going to be congested in there to be able to get your information out, to have good speed coverage.
Well, just on that note, can you tell us the difference between up and down?
Okay.
What does up mean, and how important is that?
Okay. So normally when you're doing your viewing Netflix, doing your web browsing, etc., a majority of the data is a download. So you click your button, there's maybe a small little burst of data that goes towards the servers out there, but most of the data comes towards you. In today's day and age of trying to do telecommuting, etc., we need a lot more upload, because we're doing the Zoom or whatever it may be in your house, big emails, CAD for, you know, engineering type activities. So you need a bigger upload, and thus the download is also the same, you know, at the same rate. So is that about?
Yeah, does that make it clear for y'all?
Basically, download is what's coming to you, and
Exactly.
Upload is what you're sending out.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And anytime you see ads out there, they're always talking about download speeds, and that's usually the highest they could possibly do out there.
Mr. Mayor, man.
Go ahead.
Just for the layman out there, when I think of fiber, I think of you're coming through the ground and going into the user, the house. Is that the fact?
That is a fact. So the proposal is fiber to the home. We don't know if it be aerial or if it be underground. That's their preference as to how to get to you. I would say most of it that's aerial today stays aerial, and maybe some more of the middle mile, which we call the between their hub locations, they go underground.
Mayor and Counselor, and Herman, if you would explain a little bit more on how the whole system works. So, some of our system does have copper in it still, so that becomes prohibitive in delivering the speeds that they're talking about, so.
Correct. So today, the telephone company provides DSL service, which is based on the copper system out there, copper cable that they run to your house. And that's typically, most of the DSL has reached its limits. It's, maybe 40 megabits per second. So now that we take the jump up to the fiber optic, it's just a whole new ballgame. And today, the infrastructure for the telephone company for Windstream is not there. They can't provide anything above what they're doing right now. So they need a major change out to be able to get there. The TDS or the cable company provides it over the coax. So it's a shared system. As you go down the line, you share it with the neighbors, et cetera. Get the speeds that everybody combined in that area might get.
It dilutes it.
There's a good term right there, dilutes it. As you go further down the line and you're at the end, then you shared it with all your neighbors to get.
So when all the tourists are in town and they're using it, and you have good internet during the week or most of the time, and then in the summer you can't get anything?
And Mayor, one of the reasons I bring that up, and I don't know about Councilor Hooker at your home, but right there, we live in the same area. I get all these offers from TDS that says they could provide a gig of service, 300 up, 300 down. And then you call them and they say, oh, not in your area. We only have the ability of providing, 100 up and 30 down or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, why did you send me this? Oh, because some places we do have fiber.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
Well, then the small print says up to, because they will not guarantee that level of service.
I didn't have my glasses on, so I didn't read that part.
But again, layman, continuing with that, would it be a point where, okay, this is the one time that we're coming in and everybody that wants it, you need to sign up to get it now, or a year from now, when a person buys a home and it's not in there, would they still be able to potentially get it to them?
So they're gonna put in the infrastructure to take it by everybody's house. If you don't sign up, of course, it's not gonna go there. So it'd be aerial. If it's aerial, it'll be on the pole near your house. And so when you order it, they'll bring it into the house and get it going. They're looking at a 18-month construction, ordering, getting the cable and construction design, et cetera. So hopefully by the beginning of 2024, we're seeing the action, new internet system. One thing we also emphasize with doing this is the making sure that one cable cut doesn't kill the whole system out there. So we've been assured that as the cable gets towards the main locations out there, that it's going in two directions. So they promise they have a direction towards Roswell and a direction towards Alamogordo that way. So we'd be safe there.
Can you speak to the pricing?
The which?
Pricing, the residential pricing. One of the things we
Yes.
didn't want to do is empower one company to overwhelm, and then next thing you know, we're at $200 a month.
Yeah.
Right.
So we talked to them about that.
Yes. So we emphasized and asked in our RFP what, the pricing would be, and they did put it on paper that it's competitive with anybody else. It looks like the gigabit would be $90 per month, and come down from there. So I think you can get 500 megabits per second or half a gigabit at $10 less, and I think 100 megabits at $10 less than that. So around $60 to $90 for the range. And they also participate in the low-income type service, so they can provide that as needed.
I have a question there as far as customer service. Are you all planning on setting up an office here in Ruidoso to where somebody can go in and actually talk to a face?
Of course, I'm not the awardee, but they've put in their paperwork that they're gonna have better service. Number one, they need to change out the existing system or else it's gonna be a nightmare forever. So as soon as they get to that new system, it'll be a whole new way to operate. And things will be much better in terms of, it rains and the cable gets wet and you get a problem. There's no more of that in the fiber optic world. No more, static on the line type of thing that causes bits on the line to fall off,
So tell me about your experience, because you've done this other places.
Yes, we've,
Remember, he's the consultant. He's our guy, that he helps set the parameters for what we're looking for, help us define we tell him what we're wanting: good service, affordable, consistent, redundancy. We're yelling all this stuff, and then he tells us what that means. So we put that in RFP, went out, these people answered it, and he's making sure that they are matching our apples to apples. So, but the reason we picked him is, go ahead, talk about your past.
So, I'm a telecommunications engineer, so I do this all the time, a lot of it in the radio systems, but now the fiber optic systems are much bigger than that. At Los Alamos County, we did a complete design of the entire fiber to the home system. So figured out what hubs would go in, how to get to each of the houses, provided a complete project to be able to go out and complete it. They were considering funding it on a municipal level, so they own the electric company, so that kind of makes it a better system, being able to do that. But they didn't move forward with it, so this was 7 years ago, and of course now they're looking back, they're calling me back and saying, well, why didn't we do this? Well, we presented it, but it didn't happen. So it all, it worked out in terms of they have it all designed right now. They have it all ready, so ready to implement as we go along. That I had mentioned at the beginning, we could consider a municipal system here, but the cost to that is extreme. It's not something that you could take on. I think Windstream provided a very good, big value to the village to be able to put in a network that's going to work for him.
Because they have a lot of the backbone already here.
They have a lot of the backbone. It appears that they're putting a lot of fiber optics. I see a lot of their sticks in the ground that they've been adding. So I think it'll be a relatively quick, being the 18 months is pretty good turnaround to get the entire village done. That's pretty big.
And when they say the entire village, we mean the entire village.
They have 8,000 premises to go to is what they have in their RFP.
We have areas right in town that you can't get certain services. So they're talking about putting it in the ground, hanging it on poles where they already have agreements.
They didn't specify what they're doing at their locations.
Mayor, if I may, this approval will also get us moving forward to start negotiations for the contract. So with that, we'll make sure that all those issues are addressed in the contract.
So when we talk about the entire village, the airport is within the village. All right, does that include the airport?
It's village property. It's not in the village.
Okay, but it's village property. So is that, or is it within the village bounds?
We didn't specifically
No.
address the
Okay, so it's within the village bounds.
The village bounds, now, we did look at one time, and I can't remember which one, about getting fiber to the airport. There is fiber that runs out there, but the way they were gonna take it was gonna be pretty expensive to get it out there.
And it's not the ETZ?
We don't have ETZ.
Well, the Gatlin and stuff like that.
Yeah, but no, it's just in the village.
Mayor, just to be clear on this, this RFP is focused on the residential areas. The previous RFP is where we focused on public properties to build out the backbone. So we didn't address the airport with this RFP.
We had already talked about it.
And then fiber going to the home, is it to the home or into the home?
It's
Because there's a difference
It's
there.
into, yeah.
Into.
They'll take it all the way.
Right to the router,
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Right into the router, and then you'll do your wireless or
because
whatever.
otherwise you got that bottleneck of the
Right.
copper in the house.
Yeah. No, and the deal is, you bring up a good point, you can take fiber up to that router and then do wireless. And then if you had gigabit service, you're not gonna get it, because your wireless device towards your box is not gigabit.
Only has a certain.
Yeah, so you
speed.
gotta plug in, so
Right.
just a reminder that 18 months from now, if you don't get gigabit.
So wait a minute, it goes to a router, but a router can't put out a gigabit?
The latest technology with wireless between your phone or your laptop or whatever to that router isn't at gigabit speeds right now. So it's, and, you know, who knows, in 18 months, it'll be there. I think it will. But plugging in with that cable is your best test to say, hey, I got the maximum speed. And then any other device that you have could be slower than that.
Still be faster than anything I've got.
Well, then the pricing, I mean, I'm paying 60 some bucks for four megabits right now.
Four?
Four is what I'm promised up to. That's why I said it's up to. Because when I call them and say I'm getting 1.7, they go, well, it's not guaranteed.
Thought I was bad at 6.
Does anybody else have any questions? Anything that you're gonna need? Okay.
Mayor, just real quick on, you know, this, you want to talk about the recovery plan and whatnot as well, Herman, and how this fits into the overall picture?
Okay. So the ARPA dollars that you guys were the federal government gave, is fitting into this very nicely. Our survey showed that we don't meet, the existing speeds don't meet the criteria for minimal service. So we can use that money to be able to pay for a part of this that to get to the next level. So the next level, so the federal government has finally come up and said that the minimum to be at the minimum level, you know, you talk about 4, that's kind of crazy. 100 megabits download and 100 upload. So that's the minimum. So the gigabit is another 10 times that. So, but the minimum they want to see is 100. So that's anything below that right now is not meeting the standards. So the ARPA money can be used to fix that up.
Okay, anything else?
Just, Mayor, you know, I have continued to have conversations with the broadband organization that was set up at the state level, Matt, and you know, we're continuing to make sure that we try to position ourselves so that we can receive some of the money that's going to the state as well. And, you know, there's continued discussions that I'm having to make sure that not just the ARPA funds, but there may be other opportunities where we can leverage dollars, so.
Anyone else? Okay, regular item?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Herman. Karen, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So that's exciting stuff. People have been working on this for,
Mayor, you know, just one other thing, Herman is good friends with Mark Gallegos, you know, from Portales.
and he knows Tim too, so obviously.
Herman, Mark, I told him that Counselor Hooker spent some time in Portales, so I think he knows Mark Gallegos.
Long time.
Okay, we'll go back to item number 1, discussion on ratification of adoption of resolution 2022-16, a resolution approving the acquisition of real property, the .42 acre tract of vacant land along the 100 block of Lakeshore Drive located In Alto, Lincoln County, New Mexico, Griego.
Good morning, Mayor and
Morning.
councilors. So this resolution is to cover the donation of some property, which is on the western side of the property we bought at Alto Lake. So the way the plats are laid out, they actually, Mr. Gabor and his wife own our driveway. And so they've graciously agreed to donate that property to us, so there's no issue with the ownership of that access to the property. They are wanting to retain a small piece on the very western edge of that particular piece of property. So if you all agree to it, well, I guess we're ratifying it, so part of the process would be when we replat that is to plat that properly with them retaining that one piece.
Okay. That's pretty, and I think just for recognition's sake, I'd like to keep it on regular.
Yeah, I think it's nice.
Okay, all right. So what about the bridge? Did it ever get unloaded?
Yes,
Is it-
the bridge is in place.
Oh, it's already in place?
There's a few minor things that we need to do on our end, but the install is completed. Just with the lots of things going on, we still have to do a little bit of work on the trail and placement of picnic tables and so on. But
Oh, we know.
And we just need to check it really good, or it'll be like the door handles in some of our buildings around. After the construction, the door handles weren't screwed in good. So, all right, thank you. Then number 2 is discussion on Smalls purchase agreement with Zipmaster Zipline to operate a zipline at 200 Country Club Drive from May 15th, 2022 through October 31st, 2022.
So, Mayor and councilors, this small purchase agreement is in reference to operating a zip line on the new property that we're in the process of closing on 200 Country Club Drive.
May 10th.
As you all are probably aware, that belongs to Casey Dorgan. I did approach him during our discussion of purchasing that property. He did express interest of continuing to operating there, and so he did submit a proposal, which I've included in the scope of the agreement. And I would just like to entertain that option to continue that operation.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I just don't like the zip line there. I don't think it looks good in town. I don't think we purchased that property to put a zip line on it. I just don't like this. I didn't like it there when it's been there the whole time. I don't think that it looks good on that property.
Can you tell us what your plans are? I mean, I know we're trying to just get some activity going down there, and so we haven't got a master plan for that yet.
So, we have not completed a master plan, and actually, we have submitted a purchase order to Groundwork Studios to not quite perform a master plan, but at least a conceptual plan. And so we had an initial meeting. Unfortunately, a couple people weren't able to be present. I did submit some items that, we would like to see laid out on a conceptual map. Some of the items included obviously, we would like to consider it as an community event space. And so some of the plans would include the addition of electricity. One of the most important things would be the addition of an expanded parking area, possibly a pavilion, a little walking path that would meander along the river side. It's not up against the river, but on that northern side of the property that kind of overlooks the river. And then to include the potential, location for that zip line. That one thing that if we moved forward with it, that I would like to address specifically with the zip line is that we maybe try to relocate it somewhere on the property. That where its placement was, that was the previous arrangement with the previous owner. I would agree that, we could probably move it where we could accommodate some of our community events a little better. And so just like in the short term, short-range plan, we want to have an initial event on the weekend of the motorcycle rally. We're looking at, having a stage placed there, have some free, music available to the community and for that weekend, having a couple of food vendors and an alcohol sales. I believe that, in my opinion, it would complement the activity we're trying to put down there. It would provide another kind of outdoor recreation in that space. It is a big piece of property. It can be maybe relocated where it's not, because right now it's right in the center of the property.
Right. Yes, sir.
Question, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead.
Rodney, so hypothetically, I'm a guy in town that I have a zip line that I would like to put up. Did I have the opportunity to put that there, or did I get a chance, or do we have to give me a chance?
Well, it's a small purchase agreement. I mean, we're not buying anything, we're working on agreement, so I don't know that it has to, does it, Zach?
Mayor, I would, the counselor does bring up a good point. The only thing on that is it's an existing business on that property, and, my recommendation is that we, issue this for a 1-year period, and then develop our master plan, and then consider opening it up for a competitive process. Since he is an existing business in the transition, and we moved on this pretty quick, I won't want to displace him. So my recommendation is to issue a temporary agreement with him to operate through this year, and then give us the opportunity to develop that plan throughout the next year, and then get ready for next year on how we're going to approach a long-term solution, and then open it up for fair competition at that point in time.
That's all I'm looking for, yes, sir.
What about, so are we talking about being able to park over there pretty quick? Have some, where you could just get off of Country Club?
Yes, sir. As soon as we
Take
close on the
possession.
property, we would like to do a little bit of pretty simple work, moving rocks, T-posts and that kind of stuff, and opening it up a little bit more for parking. But that's something we want to move on fairly quickly.
And then part of this master plan, we're going to talk about the fish habitat, the river rehab, and all that stuff that Boyd is working on.
Well,
Access to the river?
not necessarily, because it doesn't have access to the river.
There's not any
No,
access?
there's not any access to the river. It's an overlook of the river, but if you recall, on the north end, there's a driveway, and you can currently see the stakes where it's been surveyed. We own a lot of the driveway, but it doesn't go down to the river. So it's a river overlook, but it wouldn't provide any direct access to the river.
Okay.
Mayor, I've got a few issues with the agreement itself. On page 4, under term, it says the term of this agreement shall be for 1 year, but the dates are May 10th through October 31st. That's not a year. So that language needs to be corrected. Under the renewal, it says the term of this agreement is for 1 year with an option to extend the contract for an additional 3 years. So the term is not for a full year. And then, as we were just speaking, we may want to remove any renewal out of there. And then on page 3, under number 12, it says the contractor will be allowed to store Zipline equipment on the premises from October 31st through April 1st of each year on a mutually agreed upon site that shall not interfere. The terms of this agreement do not go from October 31st on. So that should be removed from the agreement as well.
Counselor, we can make those corrections.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But by next week, we can get that all taken care of.
Mayor, with that, his operation doesn't go through the winter, so, you may consider just issuing this agreement for this
Seasonal.
summer season.
And then we're supposed to store it on there?
It was just something that's brought up. If it was an extended agreement, that was a previous agreement that he had with the previous owner. I mean, it's, if that's something that you all wish not to have, I understand. We can strike that from the agreement. And I believe we'd be striking it from the agreement anyways if we move forward with it being just a seasonal agreement.
I think it would have to be in there just so it's known, hey, here's where we're at, here's what we're doing. At the end of this, you're gonna have to get it off no matter what.
Is an item, Counselor, in there that addresses removal of items 30 days after that. I can retain that item, but remove the long-term storage.
It's number 19 on page 3.
Mr. Mayor, Zach, have you had a chance to review this? There are a lot of inconsistencies.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one that I reviewed. It says the term.
On the, if I could interject, when I submitted the original scope to Mr. Cook, there was some discrepancies on the agreement. I think at that point I wasn't exactly sure what his operating period was. I can clean those up. As far as outside of the term, all of the language that I submitted to Zach should be the same. I didn't make any edits to the rest of the scope. It was only the term.
Well, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that we're going in, if we're going with this, we're going in a direction of one and done.
What do you mean?
Well, that it won't be renewed, that there won't be an option for renewal, that it will not continue with taking the equipment and basically harvesting it and then placing it on the property for an indefinite time. So I think in fairness to the applicant that wants to do this, they need to know this is it. This is when it starts, this is when it stops, then it's not anymore. Because that would be unfair. The idea, the implication of this is that it would go on and for 3 years, I think it was. So I just think it needs to be clarified by both parties.
Well, the statement is it could go on. It's renewable.
Could, yeah.
Renewal. So, you know,
Well, it's going to depend upon master plan.
right.
And then if that use is within the master plan, then it would go out to bid.
Forbid.
Right. So I think that this agreement needs to be for one season, and then based upon the master plan and based upon going out for bid, then it could possibly come back with a more permanent agreement at that point.
Okay. Mayor, we'll take the comments that we've heard today, incorporate that into the plan and bring it back under a regular item if that's the wishes of the mayor and council.
Yep. I was just looking for an inspection portion on here. You know, on all these others, we have the right to review receipts and all that. Is that in here? I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
It should be not only the report due with all the individual payments, but as well as I believe there's an item that states that we.
I see the regular inspections. Is that where that's at?
That's one of them for the inspections of the actual.
Yeah, regular
equipment.
inspections, but that's audit. Usually audit, inspection. I don't know if you're talking about the equipment.
Yes.
That's all of it. Okay.
Yes, and the equipment as well, just.
Okay. So we want to have this one obviously on regular item. So, and you got a list of the stuff, Rodney, that
Yes,
they're
sir.
asking for? Okay. All right. All right, then we'll go to item number 3, discussion on first renewal agreement with High Mountain Concessionaire, LLC, to operate concessions at Alto Lake. Yes, sir, Rodney?
So Mayor and Councilors, this is the first renewal agreement to operate the concessions at Alto Lake. So on the initial agreement, they actually did not operate,
Yeah.
perform the operations in the building as we intended due to COVID. And so Manager Dodge and I did visit with the owner, with Mr. Seidenberger, about some of the questions that were brought up the last time it was put on the workshop meeting. And so we did address those concerns and clarified the village's expectations. Of course, he stated that he understood what our expectations were and that he would address the items that were brought up. And so we're presenting this renewal for them to operate as intended in the original agreement, which included the concession sales out of the building retaining, like pertaining to lake operations, like selling fish, bait, tackle, operating a small-scale rental operations for boats, and then the operation of a restaurant in the evenings.
Whatever happened about the alcohol question?
Gosh, I don't have that answer. I can't recall, and I can get that answer. I'm not sure if he was wanting to sell or not. I apologize, but I can get that answer for the.
Well, the question was, because that was Billy's own property, and if he was wanting to serve alcohol at the restaurant in the evenings, was that even allowable?
Yeah, not on the lake, just, if they're gonna have the restaurant open year-round, or?
I mean, I believe it would be. We allow it to be on special events, which is a different permit, but I believe it would be permitted.
Similar to the Links Golf Course?
I'm just not sure that
That it goes year-round or whatever?
that was a part of his operations or not, but I can find that out.
Yeah, I don't even know, did he want it on there? I don't even know if they've asked, have they?
I'm not certain. I'll find that out.
Okay.
He's got it in there that they're looking at getting a.
Beer and wine license permit? Okay.
All these dates are wrong, too. This is for the 21st.
Okay. Okay, I'll edit that. I believe it was when I initially submitted the agreement in March.
all last
Mr. Mayor, I
year's.
think it says it commences on April 14th
Yeah.
and terminates on 31 March next year, so.
Oh, the one I was looking at the agreement.
That's what this one is. But up on the top, it says the first renewal agreement was April 14th, 2020.
that was a
And then
rollover.
now therefore, the parties agree to file the agreement is hereby renewed for a period. And that April 14th needs to be changed and,
I'll update that. I apologize.
okay. And it looks like the March 31st, so we would be reviewing it right before the season. Okay. Regular or,
Consent, I think.
is that what y'all want?
Yeah, if they just make those,
Okay.
correct the dates.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Item number 4, discussion on, thank you, Rodney. Discussion on incentive pay for identified department safety liaison for the safety program. And Cheryl's going to explain this to us.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So this is, what we've done is, we've identified 9 safety liaisons for our operational departments, and then 1 safety liaison for Village Hall. And these safety liaisons will, they will make up the safety committee. They will work with the safety coordinator on training, tailgate topics for their staff. They'll do audits and walkthroughs with him, scheduling training, different things, making sure that training gets submitted to the safety coordinator to track. So they're gonna, we have created a job description for the safety liaisons, and they will have specific duties and responsibilities above their other department, position duties. So we are proposing to give an incentive pay, to those liaisons for those extra duties of $1 per hour, as long as they're active in the program and, complete the duties and responsibilities that we've outlined. If they're not active, then, there's a, on the agreement, they would have to be replaced. So there is work to do, to make it successful for all the departments and to work with Tim Salazar, our safety coordinator. But we want to be able to give them that for the extra work, just to make sure that program is successful.
Mayor, councilors, Councilor Hooker, the New Mexico Municipal League, now that AJ is taking over, has changed the self-insured fund tremendously on how they're approaching it. And, with that said, they're not doing business with safety counseling the way that they used to. So each organization is basically working with this new individual named Erica Moncayo. She's their risk manager liaison that's working with all the municipalities. And we're developing programs. They gave us about a $300,000 rebate on our insurance coverages. So what we're proposing is to take a portion of that money and then put it back into a safety program with the Village of Ruidoso, hiring our own safety officer, and then the coordination of all these safety liaisons. The directors have been working with Cheryl and with our safety coordinator to actually do job hazard analysis per position, and then coming up with those training programs to mitigate those hazards per position.
Mr. Mayor, Manager, I think it's great. Just question comes to mind, and I'm sure there's a process, but how does, I'm the guy that works in water department. I want to be the safety guy, but so does he and so does she. How does it get funneled up and they get chosen?
So we worked with the department directors and partnered with them to identify an individual that could take on these tasks. And that would be a good trainer. They have to be able to coach employees on unsafe behaviors, mitigate risk, and there's some paperwork to do on the training tracking
And then the other side of that is, by that statement, the director or supervisor would be the one that says, hey, you're not doing what you need to do, so you're going to be relieved. The money stops, now we pick somebody else.
correct.
Mayor, Councilor, that would be in conjunction with the safety and the HR. You know, if those liaisons aren't, providing the deliverables that are outlined in that portion of the job description, then they would be replaced and put somebody else in. We're not allowing for a director to serve in that position. We really wanted to make sure that is, more of a grassroots effort coming from within the department to create some buy-in.
And then again, an assumption would be that safety person would have the ability to say this is not safe, whether it be the director or whether it be anybody above them, by virtue of that safety position.
Mayor, Councilor, yes, they'd have the ability to stop a job.
Perfect.
They're not going to be out walking the jobs. They're going to be in their departments.
They're going to be in the departments,
Yeah.
and if there is like a trenching excavation going on, that liaison would go to the site, make sure there's a competent person on site. They've done a job hazard analysis for that site. The paperwork's filed, and if they don't have the proper PPE in place, that person would be able to stop a job.
Isn't it, Mr. Mayor, Manager Dodge, isn't this patterned a lot after the Motorola program that was used in industry and has been for years, where they can, quote, stop the line?
Counselor, I'm not familiar with that, but, there are other organizations that do have this type of a process in place.
Well, I would think that our safety person, what's his name?
Tim Salazar.
Salazar would be on the big jobs, checking on those. But in the event that somebody, because you can't be there 24 hours a day, but, so is this liaison somebody that would be working on the job the whole time?
Mayor, not necessarily, but if there was a job, just like say they got a call and a Public Works Department was gonna have to do some type of excavation, that would be somebody within the department that would be able to respond and make sure that those things are in place. And then if there is a major problem, then he could call out Tim or even Ron or myself, so.
Or so if we were in office and someone had a $2.99 power strip with a couple of floor heaters and some other things.
The safety liaison within this building should either contact myself, Ron, or one of the directors, or the safety liaison.
And even if a counselor was abusing their electrical outlet with a heating blanket or anything like that, would that be all? I'm just pulling her leg. But. Okay, I think we get the picture, and I think it's a good deal, and because the overall purpose is we want to have good safety records.
So I'm sorry if you guys covered this, but the financial impact, it says is $20,800. Is that strictly the stipend, or does that include the employer overhead as well?
That's the stipend.
Okay, so then it's going to be more on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
What's, Judy, approximately what would the overhead be?
The burden on that 20,000.
15% or so?
Another 30.
30%? Okay.
Because they're getting paid, so those people, liaisons, are 8 hours, they're getting that
$8
dollar, yes,
a day.
yeah.
Mayor and council, I just want to point out that we're handling this as a stipend, just like we would a telephone or, as opposed to adding it as a direct cost to their overall wages so that it doesn't become a property right. And we don't have to go through the whole lauder mill process if they're not functioning, if we just say, or even if somebody comes up and says, you know what, this is too much, can you assign this to somebody else or whatever, it gives us that opportunity to change it without having to go through, all those type of property right issues that we would have with other types of pay.
So it's
And-
just added on to your pay,
Hourly rate,
yeah.
yeah,
And-
just kind of like a shift differential or.
Mayor and council, any service credits or any other increases that an employee receives will be off of the base rate and not include that stipend also. Just wanted
And
to
I don't
bring
know
that
if
up.
you were in here, but they briefed it whenever they got their dividend basically back from the municipal league.
300 grand.
That's what's gonna.
That's gonna help fund it.
Josh, you already have somebody picked up? What's that, sir? The topic of our discussion, do you have somebody picked out?
Featherstone.
So, given the discussion that we had, I can see an issue is if you have a safety liaison for street department, let's say, and they have to go out and do a trenching or whatever, what happens if that safety liaison is on vacation? Who's gonna be a backup that's going to then be able to go out and make sure everything's being done properly? And
Your
if,
safety officer,
We still have a full-time safety officer.
so the full-time safety officer would then be.
yes,
But it still goes back to the supervisor.
yes.
I mean, even as today, if they're trenching right now, you've still got a supervisor that has to go in there and go, you got the stuff right, you got it on, continue to work.
Another layer.
That's your competent person, your supervisor has to be your competent person.
We're just working on additional layers.
It's the competent person is the one that's actually in charge of that job, and it's a certification that they have to have. So it's just different for like confined spaces, bucket truck, forklift, there's all kinds of different issues and departments that people are saying, that they either need to be certified and then if they're not certified, they need to be following certain procedures, so.
So would these people coordinate with Tim for training as well?
Yes,
Yes, counselor.
they would make sure that the departments that they're working in, that, as I said earlier, that we're going through and creating that job description, job hazard analysis that evaluates each position and potential hazards. And then we're going to match that up with training programs that we either have in-house or that we're developing with the ENMU, instead of using safety counseling that used to come in before. And
Which
what-
was really worthless, it
Yeah,
was.
sometimes, they had a mandatory amount of hours that you had to attend, and so you had some employees, and I'm just gonna be a little bit out of the only credits that they offered may have been a bucket truck, so you had office workers sitting in a bucket truck safety, you know what I mean? It didn't match their job, it was a lot of wasted time just to meet those safety hours.
No.
Yeah.
I especially like the reference to the weapons of mass destruction.
And Mayor and council, one other point, they will be required to take their OSHA 10 class, and Erica Moncayo from the league we're gonna partner with her to come in and get the liaisons trained on that. She's actually gonna be here on Thursday, and we're gonna sit down and,
And y'all all remember Erica's first trip here, right? She and Tim hit it off real well.
No, that was in Santa Fe.
Well, that was in Santa Fe. Oh, she came here.
Yeah, but that was
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
It was actually at the municipal league last year, and she started talking about, how she's gonna go out to all the communities and tell them how to do things, and I was like, you by yourself are gonna tackle 103 municipalities? I think you're gonna need some help. She got offended. Now she's my best friend.
Tighter than skin on an apple.
Consent,
Yeah,
And just as red.
yeah. Consent?
I believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This program actually means a lot to me personally and professionally as well, and I know it's gonna mean a lot to all the departments, so thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5, discussion on second renewal agreement, IFB 2016-004B, was here Contracting Inc. for vegetative waste disposal. Yes, sir, Mr. Parsons. Good.
Yes, this is the second of, there'll be one more after this. You'll see me here again next year.
Okay, and, anything of note change?
Jerry, Mayor Crawford, Jerry, just kind of give to the council exactly what's being transported to Sierra Contracting.
Oh, that's our green waste.
Okay, explain it to the council if you don't, just kind of explain.
So when the grapple trucks go and pick up all of the logs and the brush and pine needles, and then it is taken out there and it goes through a grinder and the mulch, and that's how they make the mulch and everything.
Like their grapple truck was on Hull Road this morning.
He wasn't speeding, was he?
No, he was parked and picking up stuff. Hopefully he went by Jack Little after that. Okay, does anybody have any questions? And then I know Van Patten's wanting to work on some, the mulch probabilities after the Bear team gets here and discusses how the mulch would work on these burnout areas to prevent or to slow down erosion and runoff. So we're working with him. So if he mentions anything to it, it's being discussed, but we're waiting on the Bear team that does the stuff for the state properties, federal properties, to take their cues, their cue from them.
Yeah, I know Eric had some concerns about it.
Yep, that if it's not maintained in a certain area, then it can be part of the debris that ends up in the river and the watershed and the whatever.
Well, and I think he's just looking to offload because he's going to end up having a lot of mulch.
Well, the manager had a good point. If we could mix it with some soil and some seed and put it on there and contain it when we do get the rain, that it might help with some of the growth area.
I don't know if he has capability of making it smaller material, because right now what comes out is kind of large stuff, but it's possible. There's a lot of possibilities.
Because they're picking it up by the bucket loads over there at the dog park every day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm there pretty much every day, and there's always somebody. And I know there's a lot of big logs over there, too, that...
And 2 staging areas now, I see.
Mayor,
Yes, sir, we had to.
No, I mean, I agree, because otherwise they'd been in the road, but I'm glad.
They are in the road.
Yeah.
Mayor, Council, I had a discussion yesterday afternoon, talking about, the whole recovery plan that we're working on. And, the Bear team is going to be making a recommendation on the federal properties and whatnot, but it will be able to apply. And, there's another organization that Eric's working with as well. We'll be able to apply some of those methodologies on trying to recondition the soils to, the residential areas as well. But really, taking it and make it into a composting. And I think, we're going to research it some more, but I think there's actually a permit that we'd have to obtain to actually develop a composting type of where we're actually making the mulch. And, you mix it with the soil, with the green waste, and then you put in some of this other stuff that we have there from Isaac and some dirt, and, cover it up and start to get it to break down. But just putting those wood chips out on the property, it takes some time to actually break it down to where it's going to be productive.
And the other stuff is where the magic comes from. It's like when you have a recipe, other stuff. Okay, do y'all want that on just consent?
Yes.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item number 6,
Council.
discussion on change order number 1 with White Sands Construction, Inc. So Adam is out, and they're extending it 117 calendar days to September 26th, 2022, and increasing the contract price by $26,123.70, excluding, and usually we include. So this is the RJU building. Is that going to be you, Ron, or?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I can move on this item here. It did have the additional days, requesting for the additional days, and the additional cost is for when they had to, on the site plan, they had to, it was to the edge, so they had to do some reconfiguring of that. And then also for the work with P&M on the lines, moving the lines, so that's the additional too. So that's where the additional amount is coming from, so.
Well, should we change the language to include, or is exclude okay?
Mr. Mayor, I'd prefer it be include because we made that, I think it was you, Tim, years ago to make the consistency throughout so that we know the exact dollar amount. And the other question I had is, I thought the purpose of the site plan was position of the building. How is it that it wasn't right to begin with?
And Karen's not here. I just wanted to, Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I know we had that discussion before when they were moving the building. There was options of, and Tim may have to help me with this one, where they were setting the building and they couldn't get it as close as they wanted to because of the edge there, so they had to redo some of the foundation in that area.
Do you remember, Tim?
On the building?
RJU, why there's an adjustment on the site plan on location of the building when we had a site plan. Why did we move it? I remember discussions, but I don't remember.
Because of the
Electrical?
instability of the soils that they found on the edge of that hill.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of the fill material that they had previously put in there, so it had to be moved over to stabilize.
And so the site plan wouldn't have included
And then there was electrical issues and some other issues as well that we ran into.
Well, it sounds like the electrical part of the cost here was because the building had to be moved. This is the way I read it. So had the building not been moved, there wouldn't have been any additional costs. So yeah, when I saw this, it's like, oh, here we go again. It's $26,000 of a, $1.6 million thing, but it's like, how did we miss that? How did it get screwed up? There was a site plan that was done, there was permitting that was done, and then all of a sudden, we have to redo it all?
Because of the soil.
So do they do the compaction tests and everything for a site plan? I mean, I'm not familiar with that process. What does the site plan include? Does it include that?
It didn't include that. That was something that they discovered when they got ready to start building.
So what they do is they look at a plat and they fix out the most desirable spot that they think's gonna take traffic and all this stuff, and then they do it. Then when we get out there to actually do the construction, that's when it was found that the soil wasn't stable.
On this project, we had Wilson developing the site plan, and then after then that's when we brought in Catlin and those guys, and when they started to, site the building, that's when they found the problems with the electrical and the instability, and they had to, propose moving the building,
So Wilson and I'm making this very simple, I'm sure, they just looked at the area and said, here's where the building should be. That's it?
I think Adam and them kind of said this is where we'd like to have it in the beginning, wasn't it? For the drive-through and whatnot that was over there. This is the wrong day that we sent him to Las Vegas, or
Yes.
Glorietta.
Send him up there. It just seems to me like part of,
Well, we could
site plan would
take
be-
note of these questions, Ron,
Okay.
and then get these to Adam, so that next week we can have a good quality answer for it. So this will be on discussion, regular.
Zeke can report on it as well, Mayor. He was directly on our side overseeing it at the time, and
Okay.
Casey was on White's,
Yeah, they went through a
White
change or two with the,
They
because I
actually-
remember they had to put in retaining wall
They
and,
had Thomas first, and
Yeah.
then, but it's all on the up and up, and they'll have better notes to recall.
and then the inclusion of GRT, please.
Yes, okay. Mayor Crawford, members of the council, also, they had to reroute the electricity with P&M, and they had to wait on that, and there was a line that had to be moved that was going to the well, and they had to do a temporary, so there was.
Yeah, and then it's electrical to the well was the other part of that.
but that's because they moved the building.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you got all those, Ron?
Yes, Mayor, and that'll be a regular item.
Yes. Item number 7, discussion on ratification of change order number 3 with General Hydronics LLC for the Town and Country project, requesting an extension of 49 calendar days to May 23rd. This will obviously be regular, or do y'all, everybody understand why this one was done? They haven't stopped work. It was due to the July 6th, the rain, all the stuff that went on up there, and then they screwed up, they went a little too far on the scarification, then they've had to come back in, and the guy's been up there since we had that meeting and been very reactive, responsive.
And the big part of this change order, Mayor, is normally, once we ran into the inclement weather, we would have issued a suspension, and we did not issue a suspension so that it, if we had issued a suspension, then the contractor would have essentially demobilized and want to continue to maintain the roads throughout the winter. So we left the contract in place, with the understanding that we would consider a change order for additional days. And at the same time, the contractor stayed on site and maintained the roadways.
And he kept his word, he really did.
Yes.
It was a good job.
I'm
Just
good.
consent?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was real happy with that guy when he came in, and he's done exactly what he said he would. Number 8, discussion and authorization from the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration Local Government Division authorizing GoCerco, Inc., for the time and materials to move current dispatch recording equipment from the Ruidoso Police Department to Consolidated Dispatch Center, and it will be located at the Horton Complex in the amount not to exceed $22,108.00, including gross receipts tax. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, Council, this project is, will be part of the relocation for the consolidation to Horton Complex. The money has already been allocated by the Department of Finance. It's just, we need to get the stuff ordered and get the contract in place. So the next two other items, number 9 and 10, are going to be similar. I'll explain each of those as they come up, but that's what this is for.
Anybody have any consent on number 8?
Consent.
Okay, and then we'll move on to number 9. And hello, Katie, I don't want to ignore you. Discussion on authorization from the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, LGD, authorizing Russ Bassett Corp. To deliver and install 6 console positions at the Horton Complex in an amount not to exceed $177,747. Excuse me, $177,747.00, including gross receipts tax.
Mr. Mayor, once again, this will be for 6 workstations inside of the Horton Complex. That will double the capacity of what we're operating with right now. We have 3 stations inside of the current facility, and this will lead for future expansion.
Okay, and this money's up through DFA.
It's already been allocated through DFA. It's just, we need to, once again, get this ordered as quickly as possible so it's on site.
Okay, consent?
Yes.
Item number 10, discussion on authorization from New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, LGD, authorizing coverage 1 to move 911 equipment from Ruidoso Police Department to the Consolidated Dispatch Center located at Horton, and for the 911 expansion of the Consolidated Dispatch Center, which will be located at the Horton Complex in an amount not to exceed $104,150.00, including gross receipts tax.
Mr. Mayor, Council, once again, the money has been allocated through the Department of Finance. This will include the 911 system that will be sufficient for the expansion of the 3 additional councils of what we have.
And how many dispatchers are you still needing, Katie?
5.
Only 5.
Only 5. And are we getting any apps?
Yes, sir. I've got a couple typing tests today that I'm gonna have people come in for.
Hope they're easy.
I hope they're not like the 8 o'clock one that didn't show up.
Oh, no.
So,
What's even better is when they accept the job and don't show up for the first day.
Okay, consent. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'll just say I've had a number of people over the last few days come up and ask me, has that tower always been here? I go, yeah, they put it up in 2008. So, it's funny.
Yeah, it looks good, I like it.
so, yeah, head down that way and haven't look towards the Horton complex, there's, you'll see the tower. It's been erected and it's, it looks good.
Doesn't look like a fake tree either.
No, looks like a tower.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Mayor, on these items, I just want to let you know that John Underwood did send me a copy of the resolution.
Oh,
The
yes.
Downs did pass the resolution for consolidated dispatch, as did the county.
Yep.
Okay, so it's gonna be 3.
So, yeah.
So buy a lottery ticket.
Katie,
Yeah,
how many
exactly.
consolidated dispatchers do we have right now?
We have 8 right now currently.
It would, that, we could still, with 8, and hopefully a couple of more, we could deal with the county and we could still be okay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just unsure how many of the county dispatchers would be willing to come to Ruidoso.
And that's the one thing is
Yeah, I'm
once the
sure
we
it's zero.
consolidate, we'll have to answer
sure
that
that's a
and cross
solid
that
number.
bridge.
And this is where we're gonna have to get creative, Cheryl and these guys to find out why we're getting them, and it's pretty stressful that some don't last. And that's what I was talking to the chief about, that we get them in, get them, and then they go because there is a lot of stress. They're the first responder, they answer the phone, they have to be there. So, you know, we're looking for a certain person that has that strong mental.
And a lot of the applicants that we get, they are competent enough to handle the function of simple dispatch, but they think that it's dispatching like for a flower company or for, you know, a large corporation, and then they get in there and get thrown into the fire, and they figure out that they're handling, you know,
Life or death.
CPR situations, you know, stabbings, frantic people on the other end, and, you know, it takes a special person to be able to handle those calls and not just a calm environment.
So we're having discussions and gonna have more on what is it gonna take, you know?
Plus the holidays and.
Yeah, I mean, missing out on birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, you know, everything else that goes along with it.
Sure.
So, I think that right now we need to focus on retention. You know, obviously recruitment, but retain and take care of the folks that we have employed.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you, Katie, appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie.
Item number 11, discussion on second renewal agreement between the Village of Ruidoso and Hanson Consulting for professional services for Lincoln County DWI grant. Does anybody have any questions for Bill?
Maybe we should, just to make him feel like he's wanted.
Chief? Bill, do you have anything you want to add?
Another 1,000 a month?
1,000 a month.
All right,
Say
I think
consent.
that- yeah,
Consent.
okay.
That's it.
Austin. Discussion on third renewal agreement, land lease agreement by and between the Village of Ruidoso, Sierra Blanca Regional Airport, and Robert H. Goss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is going to be the third renewal agreement for Robert H. Goss. I'll go ahead and give you the CPI increases for this individual land lease. I needed to have a small discussion and ask you guys a question.
Thanks, Bill.
This land lease agreement was brought in May 1st, 2002 at Sierra Blanca Regional Airport. The parties hereto previously entered into a land lease agreement for 10 years with 4 additional 5-year periods with consumer price index CPI adjustment, and the parties agreed to as follows. So the land lease agreement is hereby renewed for a period of 5 years commencing May 1st, 2022, and shall terminate on April 30th of 2027. These dates were a little bit mixed up. We were supposed to bring this to council in April, but that was the council meeting when the McBride fire kicked off, so we did push it back to this council meeting. Furthermore, payment provisions are modified to reflect the CPI increase amount per square foot. The increase shall be approximately 12.9 cents per square foot. The new annual land lease amount will be $421.58. Water payment provisions are modified to reflect CPI increase. The increase shall be $3.04 from the previous amount, $16.94 per month. The new monthly water rate will be $19.98 or $239.76 annually. The question that I had for you guys, I know that previously some of these CPI increase amounts were negotiated at one point with some individuals. From my understanding, that's not something that we're going to continue to do unless told otherwise.
I think it's all too cheap, personally.
Is that water? I never really heard, never even thought about it, but is that water metered?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Well, if you're using a CPI, you can't pre-negotiate that because you don't know what the CPI is going to be in a year or 2 years, 5 years or whatnot. But looking at this, number 3, that the increase was 304 from a previous amount of 1694, but it doesn't tell us, and then the square footage, it only goes up 12.9 cents per foot. So what was it previously? Because that seems like that's like the CPI percentage may not be the same between the two, just on the surface.
Sure, and I believe I have that increase here. Let me just check real quick. I don't think I have it. I have it on my desk, but it's been a long past 3 days. But I can certainly get that to you if we want to bring this back into discussion.
Okay, only because, do you see what I'm talking about, where it shows the water? The previous amount used to be $17 and it's gone up $3.
Yes, sir.
So if the land lease is only going up, say 13 cents to round it up, what was it before, like 8 cents a foot?
Yeah, it didn't change much. I think it might have been 10.
Wow, okay. And I know some of those old leases were like dirt cheap, and then we've done new leases at a different beginning structure.
And it's just a land lease, I understand. And these people, he's probably built that building.
Yes, sir.
So, but the water just seems pretty cheap to me. I don't know how often they use it, but I know it's on a different system and everything.
And it definitely is an option to increase that. Try to bring it up to the standards of what we charge in town for residential. Me and Eric Boyda did have that conversation and pretty much mentioned that whatever water we use goes to Eric and charges us for it. So he charges us on the back end. So if we changed it to create more revenue for the airport, that's something we could do.
So did he build a hangar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's about 3,200 square foot hangar.
Okay, so
They
he's
built
just written the land. Got
Yep.
it.
And then so at the end of this, if we ever choose not to renew it or whatever, this could revert to ownership to the village. But typically what happens is we approve a sale.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're giving them cheap land, location, cheap water. Then they build it and then they end up generating all the profitability off of the property. I mean, but we are getting the airport built. And that's why I think it's important. Well, we'll wait till the other items that we talked about there. Are we discussing those? No.
No, sir.
The other ones that are up for sale that we're looking at right now,
Yes.
that the village
Right.
own them and then we rent them.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Austin, educate me, if you were to rewrite this more with a contemporary look, because you're the subject matter expert, what would be your suggestions and improvements with this lease?
I wouldn't necessarily, there would be any significant changes because it's just the land lease.
Right. But you talked about putting it on a meter, charging as we do for the village. I'm guessing that's up to 3,000 gallons, and you're at one rate, and then above that, up to 6, is it, you're on another rate, and
Right.
currently it's a flat rate, is that right?
Correct. And I'm not totally, educated on how it works for the residential side over here, but I definitely don't think anybody would be using that much water out there anyways.
Do they wash their planes?
I think some of them do, Counselor. I don't see them out there very often.
But one thing is, like we do at the village, is that we got people that never even come here. But they have water and they pay their, the water-based fee to help support the entire system. So I don't even know what our cost of that system is. I may be making too big of a deal out of nothing, but, do you have an idea, Joe K. Sabowski?
Morning, sorry.
Do you have a new chief, badge yet?
Not yet, it's on its way.
Okay.
My shirts are getting embroidered right now. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, so on the water out there, I'm not sure exactly the cost either, but it is treated water, so, I mean, it's just like a regular water system out there. We do have
Well, and I think that since we're talking about rate surveys and all this, if we could just find out what it's costing us, I know that we're the big user.
Right.
And that's it. And then we do have these other folks, but there should be something that's, I think that represents the usage, per gallon, what it takes to treat or whatever, and then maybe look at adjusting it.
Randy Kane would have some of that information.
Okay.
Because it's their water distribution system.
So, Austin, if you get with Randy Kane and Boyda and see if we can't come up with something that's better. We may be there, I don't know.
And I'm not sure why they didn't put meters in at each hangar as they were installing that stuff, because, we've had leaks and we've had to turn the
Whole thing off.
We've had to turn the whole water system off. Some of them have water stop valves outside their buildings, some of them don't, so the whole system was kind of not put together.
Won't you see if you, between now and next week, if you talk to Adam, see what it would look like to put it wouldn't have to be the big meters that we have, but if there were meters there,
right,
or shut-off valves too, and then we could incorporate that into the cost too. I mean, it may be, like I said, I may be making too big a deal out of it, but,
The shut-off valve seems to be an important part.
yeah,
of it
that seems,
because if it goes down for one, it goes down for all, so.
Right, yes, sir.
okay.
How many water customers do you have currently to the hangar? Some of them have water, correct?
Yes, some of them do. 1, 2, 3. I think there's 6 or 7 right now. Not very many, but still, it's the bigger hangars, and some of them aren't heated, so they could
freeze and bust.
Bust in the winter and stuff. So they do try to turn them off, but if something happens and they don't, then we'll have to deal with it and get the water shut off to their building somehow.
How do they turn the water off to their building?
Not all of them do. Some of them do have cutoff valves, but I know we went looking, trying to figure some stuff out one time where we couldn't find a couple of buildings didn't have the shut-off valves. So.
Okay.
And if I may add, if we are going to be expanding in the future, like we've discussed previously, it's going to be a good idea to implement things like this to get a better understanding of where we're going and how things are going to play out in the future.
Well, I would recommend for the future that water is, be put into the lease, that it's available and whatever, but not the price tied into the lease like we do here with a CPI increase, because if we have some kind of system, like we do a rate analysis like we're doing for the village, and we find out that it's gonna end up costing 10% more, but CPI is only 3%, we don't wanna be locked in at the 3%. We wanna be able to charge based on what the rate analysis is showing.
Yes, sir, Councilor Coughlin, I agree. I think we just need to go with the base village rate, whatever that for, like in town, because they are using village water, so, and if that goes up, then their rates would go up as the village, like for the minimum charge for a village water meter.
Are we on sewer or septic out there?
They're on septic.
Septic, okay. So it'd just be the water portion of that.
Water, yes, sir.
And they pay to have their own pumped.
Right. So
Or if they're pumped, I don't even know. Well, last time I asked, nobody really knew if they ever got them pumped because they're not that big of a use out of them.
Right.
Okay, you got any questions on what we're asking?
I think we're good, sir.
Okay.
Mayor, may I suggest one edit on paragraph 2, where it says $0.129 cents, just strike the word cents.
Yes. It's confusing.
Any other questions?
Since you're gonna make that edit, if you could put in there what the previous amount was, like you have in the water.
Zach, do you have that agreement also? Or?
I do.
Okay.
Okay. So obviously, we'll talk about this one, so it'll be in regular. So you get all the basic information? Okay. Thank you, Austin. Item number 14 is discussion on Resolution 2022-18, adopting a revised travel policies procedure manual for the repeal of prior resolutions and written travel policies and procedures.
You skipped,
Did I skip one?
13.
Oh, that's right. So regular on the other one, I'd already written consent, thinking I knew what y'all were going to do. Discussion on memorandum of understanding between the Village of Ruidoso, Sierra Blanca Regional Airport, and the Department of Interior Bureau of Land Management, BLM, for the water line relocation.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this MOU would allow the BLM to abandon the current water line. It runs under Sierra Blanca Airport approach corridor. And this actually runs directly underneath runway 1230. And with the preliminary engineering report from Armstrong, when we did the geotechnical surveys and we surveyed that runway, we determined that it's possible that some of the damage from on the runway is caused by water. We don't necessarily know if it's coming from this pipeline. But since we are going to resurface this runway, we went ahead and opted to do an MOU with the BLM to try to abandon this. That way, when we do resurface it, we can pull it out, get rid of it,
Yeah.
and preserve the longevity of it.
Are they paying for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the map that's included in here, the BLM Pipeline Map, is that going to be the new line?
Yes, sir. So it's going to be placed on a current trail, Elk Valley Trail,
Okay.
south and east of the approach corridor on the outskirts of the airport security fence in place.
Okay, but that gets it out from underneath the runway.
Yes, sir.
Where's their water come from?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Well, I mean, everybody needs to know. They certainly know where ours comes
If
from.
they're pumping water, are they injecting it back in?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, they actually have a well on the west end of the airport property. Right before, if you're coming from town, it's right after you cross the cattle guard, right before you hit the airport right here. There's a well right up there on the hill, right before that. And that's where their water is coming from.
What do they use that water for?
Water troughs around the BLM land for the wildlife. They've got water troughs all over the place out there.
Because that's real close to the Snowy River Cave area where we have to, for every gallon, we got to pump a gallon, isn't it?
Something like
Inject a gallon or something crazy? Wonder if they have the same standards.
Not sure, but that's where they're getting it from, so.
Okay. Okay.
Pay no attention to the man behind the.
Consent?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good deal, though. Get that.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 14. Discussion on a resolution adopting a revised travel policies and procedures manual, providing for the repeal of prior resolutions, and this is Judy.
Yes, Mayor, Councilors, DFA has increased the per diem amounts that will be effective July 1st. So many of the per diem rates are either increasing for $8 accordingly, and I've included all the rates. There's still, Santa Fe County is still the only in-state special area. So.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Consent?
Consent.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. And now then we'll move into closed session. We do.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor? Just for knowledge, I had a person ask me yesterday about Paradise Canyon and how we've made all the cuts, doing all that stuff. Is that going to be filled or is it going to be repaved?
Pave it.
Both.
They're going to do compactions and all that, and then they're going to come in and redo the whole enchilada along the same time that we're getting ready to do Warrior and Gavilan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, we actually have a pre-con now at 10 o'clock as well with Cutler. One of the things that we found out is, they're not going to be mobilizing Cutler you know, their workforce issues, equipment issues, just like everybody else, but they're delaying it 2 weeks from what they expected. So we're expecting that they're gonna be mobilizing in mid-May. It's not gonna be till the 1st of June. So that's gonna push the whole project back going into mid-July sometime for completion on the resurfacing project. Is there a preference for them to work 4 days a week or 5 days a week?
That Friday makes a big difference, don't you
Friday
think?
really does. I mean, yeah, you stay away from Walmart on Friday because everybody's coming into town and getting stuff. So,
I think the 4 days is preferable. Do y'all agree?
how long do they anticipate the actual paving process?
It's about 6 weeks,
That long to do it?
yeah. Well,
It's all a gaveling.
If you think about it, Gavilan, Paradise, and Warrior, you know, it's a lot. And, you know, at the same time, you know, we've had escalations on oil, so we've had to negotiate the prices down and millings and stuff like that on what we're gonna have.
So we may need to look at the school's schedule. I don't know what the schools, if the middle school and high school are doing anything as far as summer enrichment classes to see if that's gonna be within that
We'll
time
be
frame.
able to maintain access to those properties. That's not a.
It's not blocked.
Okay.
That's why we went with Cutler, because you get to keep them open.
Right, because they do that. But I would put the priority on Paradise. It depend, you know, because Paradise gets more traffic than Gavilan, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at how we're scheduling that and with the current work and scope, but, you know, it was a change, so we're gonna look at that and see what's most advantageous to the impacts of traffic and whatnot, and what we can knock out quicker. You know, we were just informed of that, and I let them know that I would be seeing if the council had a preference on, you know, 4 days a week or.
Yeah, because it made a big difference when they went to 4 days on Paradise and opened it up, just with the weekend travelers, the tourists coming in, they're expecting to go there, and,
And don't know another way around.
Well, and even opening it up at night has made a big difference too.
And it slowed traffic down too.
okay, we have a closed session item, so we'll need a motion to go into closed session, then we'll go to the executive.
I was just wondering, and I don't know when to put this in, but I would like to see our resolution or ordinance change for feeding the animals.
What do you
when can
mean?
we do? Well, right now, it just says a lot of education, and then you can, but I think it needs to have more meat in it to it, so
Well-
that the police officers and the code enforcement.
Well, they can already. The deal is I always get is, I didn't see them do it. That's the law. I didn't see them do it, even though I know I've had people that go, that woman right there did it, the officer didn't see him, so he goes and gives them a warning. But you've put out we're saying it one more time real loud and clear, and that's what it's saying. We got to have somebody give them a ticket, because they can give them a ticket right now. But it comes down to you got to see them. So we changed the ordinance to say, if we think you're feeding them, that won't work.
It's a matter of us catching, because it's a petty misdemeanor. It's the same as a traffic citation. So if they said, hey, the white car that just went down Hall Road was speeding, I mean, we don't know how fast they were going because
Right.
we didn't see it. It's the same concept, but we will get put some type of strategy in place to start citing it.
How can you make it? Can you make it stronger than is the speeding
We already
ticket?
have the power, I mean, to take enforcement action on it. Now, as far as making it, you know, a harsher crime, that would be something you'd have to.
No, I'm not looking for a harsher crime, but I was told by PD that there's too much of education, that we have to educate. And how many times are we having to educate people and how do you know that we've educated them? I mean, each officer could go to that feeder and say, hey, it looks like you're feeding the animals. You have a feeder.
And we
out
like
here.
leaving that in there for discretion purposes, we can take action immediately on anything. I mean, it's kind of like if somebody's doing 1 mile an hour over, we can give them a citation.
Sure.
That's not an issue at all. But is it the officer's discretion of, do we make them force their hand But I'll take a look at it and then I'll come back.
Because, I mean, we answered that question a long time ago because we put signs up every 10 yards. You know, I mean, that's the point she's making is we got people standing right by a sign feeding a horse. And I haven't seen them nearly like I used to over here. But the animals, you still see people up on Camelot that have the big feeders out in the backyard and whatnot. And we've sent them up there to knock on their doors.
If you find those locations in town, get an address on it. I'll follow up on it, or I'll have code enforcement follow up on it.
Is that the
But
kind of
give
people
us
you're
an
talking
address also.
The ones that are actually feeding at their house.
Mayor, before we go into executive session, did we go through the list of public hearings and whatnot?
No.
No, but we need to move it on. We got an attorney waiting on us. And then we have a 10 o'clock.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, so for the regular meeting, we have some, on the manager's report, we have a report, a recreational report. We also may have a presentation from one of our school teachers at the high school regarding, I believe, the deer.
Wild horses.
Wild horses. And we have public hearings. We have the appeal of the Water Resource Director's decision. This is the one that was moved from the April 12th. And then we have 3 ordinances. One's for the flood hazard regulations, the zoning, the signs, and amending the ordinance on building regulations. So those are all submitted by the Samantha.
Mayor, and I believe it was a request, I don't remember the recreation run, but there was a request from council that we do a presentation on our action plan and our after action plan on the and recovery plan for the McBride fire.
Okay.
So we do have that prepared and we continue to populate that report, but I will be ready to present that myself.
Okay. Do we need to do anything on the notice of OHVs that it did pass DOT, but it's still not legal to do it until the signs are up and?
We're out in the county?
I think we should do something just to make people aware and that we support it, and I think that's a good
Well, it
way.
passed, and the thing of it is we've already got calls from people using it, and we've told them you can't do it until the signs are up.
And I think we're also, assisting, trying to get some signage up as well, so.
So can you
Working
go
with the county.
from here to Ruidoso down, go into,
Nope, not that way, not the
So-
Hell Lake. You have to go all the way out, and then you can catch it around and come all the way back around to Hell Lake, cross the road, but you can't go down that interstate or the Highway 70 yet.
So the highway, no, but the county roads, yes.
Yes, 48 you can do, and all that. We need to get those maps so that people savvy that, because they're already driving out to the racetrack in their, and so I know the police down there, they'll whack them. Those guys, they write tickets fast. So, okay, we'll get a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Mayor, move that we move into closed session for discussion of limited personnel matters, citing 1015 1H2 and MSA 1978. Further discussion, subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatened or pending litigation which the Village of Ruidoso is or may become a participant, citing 1015 1H7 MSA 1978. And finally, discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property and or water rights by the Village of Ruidoso, citing 1015 1H8 and MSA 1978. Any action taken as a result of the closed session will be brought back into the open session.
Second.
Roll call, Ron. Good job, Gary.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Hooker?
Aye.
Counselor Copeland?
Aye.
Counselor Lutterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
I can't even think that fast much.
No, we'll be moving it.